Yes, we are truly very excited to have you join us today on Enterprise Morning. You call it the best for your information. Right here, we call it the best. Also, we are at Enterprise Television, and you're welcome once more. I am Henry.
And I'm Choma Okohe.
In a bit, we'll be going to our newspaper headlines to see all that we have for you this morning. And right after that will be our main conversation also for today. So I will get everything all sorted out and produced for you. Please do well to visit us at enterprisetvnews.com and also like, comment, and follow us on all our social media platforms at Enterprise TV 7. With us today in the studio to do justice to all that we have, newspapers, of course, going on to conversation for today. Emeka Maldonado, a journalist and a public affairs analyst. Good morning to you.
Hello.
Good morning.
Glad to be here.
Welcome.
Hello, viewers.
Choma,
Yes.
welcome.
Yes.
After a very, very French leave.
Yes.
Welcome back to Nigeria.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, so quickly, let's move on to our main papers today. We're kicking off with the Nation newspaper, that is, and we'll have the big story. Tinubu, GDP surge points to an economy on a right apart, and we have some writers here. The NBS links growth to industry services sector, and I made 7 million naira in 1 year growing tomatoes.
Now, moving up to the top strip of the Nation newspaper, we have under 18 pupils barred from writing WAEC NECO exams.
All right, still on the top strip of the same newspaper, why Southeast students are yet to benefit from federal government loans.
Okay, lastly, we have Ajayi replaces Bichi as DSS DG. Muhammad takes over at NIA. And we have another rider to that particular story. Nigeria's first individual Olympic medalist, Miyagun, dies at 83. Details are on page 31.
All right, Emeka, let's get to this GDP issue. And of course, the federal government through Bayo Onanuga had said that the GDP has grown to 3.2 as against last year, this time when it was about 2.5. And of course, some of the sectors that were fingered that contributed to that growth, service sector, just like they say, and the economy also. Now, the reality on the ground in Nigeria is opposite of the case. Now, tell us more. How do we draw the picture when a GDP is stated to say something else and the reality, the real economy is saying something else?
Well, thank you very much. You see, the issue of GDP is just an aggregate of different sectors of the economy. The sectors contributing to the day-to-day activities in the economy. But, excuse me, there's a school of thought that says that GDP cannot capture everything that happens in an economy. So it will be subjective to some extent, maybe to a large extent, if you permit me, to calculate a country's economic direction, with its GDP. For instance, Nigeria, we know that the informal sector is larger than the formal sector. We know that, for instance, there is no Nigerian company that's worth $1 billion. No Nigerian company has a capitalization of $1 billion, not one. And then when you begin to look at that, you know that globally, there is a standard by which you are measured. There are standards by which you are measured. Your economic indices are measured. Your economic performance, is measured. When you don't say, okay, that the GDP is growing based on the services sector. Now, the question comes, the question that readily arises is this. Why would you think that the same services sector that was said to be leading the economy last year will still be leading the economy this year? And then, to answer your question directly, sustainable jobs are not being created. Industry, factories are shutting down. Multinationals are exiting Nigeria. Then, we have a large population that needs to be factored in every economic activity. So, if we were a nation, maybe a tourist nation, like maybe the United Arab Emirates, you know, the Dubai Emirate, for instance, you could say, okay, fine, services sector, you could be excused, you know. But for a country like Nigeria, where industry, agriculture, manufacturing, you know, automotives, you know, telecoms have been, you know, our major drivers, but they are below the services sector, then I think it is not in the right, things are not moving in the right direction. So we need to, one, ask ourselves, how come that agriculture and agro-processing that dominated for about 15 years, dominated the GDP calculations for about 15 years, had gone down?
Because as at last year and the year before, it was at 4. It grew to about 4%.
Yes.
So,
so what has happened?
Years.
What has happened? On what services are you running the economy? If food is not, you know, top on your priority, it should not be so. Food should actually be agriculture for a nation like Nigeria, where subsistence farming, you know, is ahead of commercial farming, you know, then agriculture should actually be in the commanding heights. Then you're talking about 3%. But let's also turn it the other way. What are the, you know, things militating against economic growth? Incessant borrowing. We are borrowing too much. We're borrowing too much. And we think we have the capacity to repay. But you know what? We're eroding the purchasing power of the people. And the purchasing power of the people is where you actually measure whether you're making any progress or not.
And as it stands today, obviously, that is
the
not
purchasing power is almost nil. It's almost nil. You're driving out, you're not sure of where to. I drove out, there was nowhere to get fuel. On my way back, some filling stations had opened, you know, and I had to look at the activities I had for the day. You know, side by side, opportunity cost, side by side with having to go and spend some time at the filling station, you know, to get fuel. So when you have such contradictory situations, you are not driving the economy in the direction of growth. What you're doing is just stagnation. You think you're making progress. Yes, even in a pond, in a swamp, you know, you still see some little, you know, creatures moving about. But that doesn't mean the pond is flowing. But
okay, thank you. Now, looking at this GDP now, saying that the economy is on the right path.
Right path to where?
Yes. Now
you can be on the right path to the path backwards.
Now, saying that they can be on the right path backwards, don't you think that, or do you see that this government is trying to use this, should I call it a victory, as a means to actually give themselves hope that they're doing something great?
The problem there is that there is no victory. There is no progress. Because 3%, when you measure the strength of the naira, for instance, when you look at the fact that the Nigeria Customs has had to raise its import duty rate, FX rate, more than, is it 6 times or 8 times in 1 year? When you look at the fact that insecurity is still a major, you know, cog in the wheel of the economy. When you look at the fact that power is not yet stable and reliable. When you look at the fact that infrastructure is still in a shambles. The roads are in a bad shape. So you look at the cost of transportation. How can you base the economy on services? I mean, you know why you're even talking about these services? It's because a lot of young Nigerians, the Gen Zs, you know, and whatever the generation before them is, you know, have actually given themselves, you know, jobs through the internet, you know. Then you have logistics, the logistics chain, you have delivery, all of these things. So when you put all of these things together, then you now say you are making progress. But the point is this. What is the origination point? Okay. What kind of things are being serviced? What kind of items? Are they heavy goods? For instance, if, let's say, the car companies, you know, production companies in Nigeria, you know, are actually moving parts and all of those things, at a heavy rate, or vehicles at a heavy rate, you can now calculate the value chains, how many jobs are being created, how is money moving easily and all of that. But when you still have to go back to the banking sector, services sector, and all of that, then something is wrong somewhere.
All right. So while we, of course, dwell on that, just before we move on to the next paper, let's talk about this issue. Why Southeast students are yet to benefit from federal government student loan. A couple of days back, NELFund released the universities that had achieved funds, from the NELFund itself. The whole of the Southeast and the South were not there. No university in the Southeast and the South was listed on that particular, which means every student who applied from that zone is not amongst them. NELFund had come out to say
that is from the old Eastern region, so to speak. Now, Southeast and South.
Yes, exactly.
That was the old Eastern region.
Very, very true. So the NELFund has come up to say that the reason is because universities in those areas have refused to do what they should do. How truthful do you think that is?
Well, I found it. I was taken aback. It's incredulous that all universities in the former Eastern region, that of all of them, not one met the NELFund criteria. I wonder. Then why would you go ahead to start releasing funds?
Definitely true.
Because we are going into the 2023, for many universities, they are going into the 2024-2025 session. Some are still grappling with 2022-2023. Some are still grappling with 2023-2024. And then you are releasing funds. Why? How are you, is this money, if it was free money, then we could say, okay, no problem, we'll wait. But this is money that you expect people to pay back. So you're not doing them a favor. It's actually you, because it shows that your capacity to, onboard your, students into tertiary education is weak. So what you're doing is that you are mortgaging their future in advance. People who should be able to step into a future, and start earning money. What you are doing is you are already eating into money that they've not even started earning.
Okay, thank you,
So I'm sorry, when you now talk about that, it shows that even the people in NELFund are not really doing their jobs well. Because not long ago, was it 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, vice chancellors, heads of tertiary institutions in Nigeria met with the Minister of Education and the JAMB registrar in Abuja. So what was wrong with convening a meeting with those same people, either maybe after this meeting, convening a meeting with them to say that you had not met the criteria? Okay, you can extend the deadline. It reminds me of what the Petroleum Technology Development Fund said some years ago under the former president, that they couldn't come and do interviews of candidates in Southeast because of insecurity. And they deny an entire zone of the opportunity.
So this could be a conscious, disenfranchisation, isn't it?
That to me, I don't believe the excuse given by NELFund to me is baseless.
Okay, thank you. Still on the educational sector, and now let's talk about the Minister of Education coming up with this law that the under 18 pupils are banned from writing WAEC NECO exams. This is a country that is filled with young individuals, and looking at how the world globally is going. The young ones and the young minds are the ones bringing up innovations. Now, if a country like Nigeria would say of students under 18 or pupils cannot write WAEC and NECO, what is the future of Nigerian educational sector with this particular development?
Emeka, I would love us to take that because it's actually making headline news on the Vanguard. Yeah, so I would love you to take that, your submission from the Vanguard, of course, which still have that same story. Outrage as federal government pegs age for writing WAEC at 18 years. So, well, the sad irony is that you say people cannot advance to the next level academically, but under 18 girls can be married off. Which one helps a nation more? Without trying to, which one helps a nation more? Giving off young girls marriage or encouraging them to step up the ladder of progress? Is that a serious nation?
Over the years, we'll be talking of 16. Why are you moving it to 18? How are you going to compete globally? Yeah, they tell you in some countries of the world, you must be 18, blah, blah, blah. Can you structure, ordinarily just pay ASU? ASU has been going on strike for more than 30 years. For more than 30 years, going to 40 years. ASU has been going on strike repeatedly. You cannot meet their demands. You cannot fund tertiary institutions. You cannot, help tertiary institutions to meet their carrying capacity. That is why you see that people do very well in JAM, get over 300, but they don't get admitted. Why? When the carrying capacity has to be reduced, what does it tell you? It means that you will sacrifice merit for mediocrity. So now you're looking at age, and let me tell you something. They tell you, okay, with the NIN, they will detect, oh, that is Bangladesh. Because why? See, kidnappers have been operating, even making calls, making Zoom calls, showing themselves. You cannot track them with NIN. Then is it to track people who decide, people who decide to circumvent the system, to get their children into higher education that you'll be able to track? Okay, parents, out of frustration, some years ago, they took their students to Togo, Benin, Rwanda, and different places. Excuse me. You see, went after them to say, the universities are fake, that this, that, and the other. Why is the Nigerian system built to just perpetuate injustice at every point? Injustice, to frustrate the people. What is it with these people in government? What is it with these people who think they have power that is actually derived from the people? All it just takes is simple thinking. We cannot move it to 18 years. It's not possible. And I believe that parents will go to court on this matter. Peg it at 16. Those times when you needed for a child to put the hand over the head, to talk, those days are gone. But the sad is that we are a society in retrogression. This is a society that is celebrating traditional festivals and all of those things. When people are holding fairs, expos, science, technology, ICT expos, people are talking of going to build hotels on the moon. People are talking of concrete space. We're still engaged in all these things. Look, whether we like it or not, the sum total of our progress, we can calculate GDP from now till the kingdom come. If we don't fix the educational sector, we will just be making progress in the reverse gear to nowhere. They should leave it at 16 years. Moving it to 18 is meaningless. Because if you look at it, by the way, look at it. Do you know the frustration people go through to get admission? So you're saying that the first time somebody will try for them is 18. If he or she doesn't get admission, you jump to 19. You jump to 20. Why not start from 16? Then instead of even bothering about jump, why not expand the field? Let there be other. You have NATEB, National Business and Technical Education Board. Why not through that onboard people in different areas where they don't necessarily have to go through the university, even formal tertiary education. For instance, when they finish secondary school, they can get into technical education. And then through the apprenticeship system, they learn the skill, and then maybe they spend like 3 years or so, or 4 years or so, in learning a skill. Then by the time they are coming out, they have, what we used to call city and guilds. Then with that, they can decide to move into university system. In the university system, you are telling little children to go and read medicine. And look at what we have now. To go and read law. Instead of you to say, no, that this thing should be post-tertiary courses. Certain courses should be post-tertiary. So that from 16, between 16 and 20, you can mold. There's a difference between a pupil and a student. Too often the media interchanges, and they are not the same thing. A pupil is there to learn, to be taught. A student is a scholar. A student is asked to, look at this, camera. Formulate a hypothesis. Look at this, and then think. So those are two different things. Now you are telling parents to keep children at home till 18. Doing what?
But Emeka, this is not actually peculiar to us. We all went through the 6-3-3-4 system of education.
Who has it helped?
But because if
I went through that, and we were deceived. In fact, I should actually have sued the federal government because they told us that we were going to get automatic admission. If you had 6 credits, we are going to get automatic admission. By the end of the day, we were asked to do JAMB. Honestly, I wish my parents had gone to court, had sued the federal government, because that was trickery.
But Emeka,
that was deceptive.
Yeah. As much as we try to agree, but of course, laws are actually laws in Canada.
No, it's not a law. It's just it's not the direction of it. Tomorrow, the same people will turn around. Let me tell you, the Minister of Education was the VC of a private university. He should come out and tell us when he was the VC of that university, how they were handling admission. It is easy to pontificate, but let us look at your antecedents, and then we know whether to take you seriously or not.
All right, so finally, just before we wind up for today, let's take a look at the global union orders that decry worsening right abuse in Nigeria. Yesterday, the former aide of Tambuwal Shafiu was arrested for defaming the governor, stating that he can't make his O level was false, and he couldn't address people in English language, of course, and that led to his arrest yesterday. The hearing will be for 6th of September. Now, these are some of the right abuses that we face in Nigeria. I'd love you to speak on this, especially as it connects defamation, libel, and free speech in the country.
Is it not? He was arrested by who? The Nigeria police.
Yes,
Nigeria police that cannot face kidnappers. Nigeria police that has to lie that they rescued those medical students from Benue, and people are telling them it's not true. I want to say it's not true.
So they paid ransom. Is that what you're saying?
That's what is in the public space now. Those people have families now. They have family members now. Okay, fine. If you killed anybody, if you captured anybody, show us the people you captured. I just saw one small picture of some people in one corner. That is, by the way. Now, coming to this, I have seen that same governor making an address. You didn't know whether he was speaking in Hausa or he was speaking in English. It was just neither here nor there. Then, now, the same police, when it comes to going after journalists, bloggers, and citizens, they are strengthened. But when it comes to going after the actual criminals, they lose their strength. Why? You see, we are a society permanently stuck in retrogression, and a society that does not promote scholarship, a society that does not allow issues to be interrogated, a society that believes that because of your status you have a right to talk down on people. Such a society won't go far. It will just keep moving around in circles, and that is where the problem is. If this guy, because the governor is just misusing his power, and the police, that blogger should sue the police, because you know why? The governor cannot be arrested. He cannot be sued because of Section 308 of the Constitution. Now, you are taking advantage of what you cannot surrender yourself to. He who comes to equity must come with clean hands. Let the governor say, okay, I'm giving up my immunity. Let us now see, so that it will be an open investigation. That is one. Two, there's nothing called criminal libel. You can have malicious publication. Yes, you go to court. You don't have to now take advantage of the police, the idle police. Look at the number of policemen at checkpoints. If you have that number of policemen at checkpoints, how many are in the station? So that tells you the kind of thinking in the security services. Okay. So the point is that the police must immediately release that blogger. I know there are other bloggers that they've kept in detention. And let me tell you something. This policeman, like I was telling the police PR, the first PR, I told him, sometimes some of the posts you make on X, when I look at them, I feel very sorry for you. You know why? One day you are going to leave that position. That uniform you think you're putting on that makes you talk down on people, threatening people, you will leave that position. And you know what? You'll become another civilian. And those things you are subjecting people to today, you will face those things in the future. So I will advise all these people in power, They should remember, we, people like me, we have seen 25 years of democracy. We have seen tyrants rise and fall. You have some governors telling the security aides to slap people and all of that. One day, they are going to become ordinary citizens and they will receive more than slaps. The law is going to slap them into jail. It's sad. What, these rights abuses, but let me tell you something. It is the reason why you have a small company like Zoncheng Fucheng taking Nigeria to court and seizing Nigeria's presidential judges. Why? Because the only language you understand is when people are able to match these people, these arrogant people in power, when people are able to match them, power, fire for fire, then they are, they step back on the path of reason. Otherwise, that's why you see them, bullying ordinary defenseless citizens. But I will let them know one thing. A day of reckoning is coming.
Thank you so much, Jennifer.
A day of reckoning is coming. Of course, this points to, lots of, issues that we have in Nigeria, especially as it concerns the same right abuses that we keep, talking about. Because free speech can only be free speech when people you don't like, are allowed to say things you do not like. Apart from that, I don't know what else we call free speech, but of course that's
there
just
is freedom of speech, but there is no freedom after speech.
And that's in a retrogressive economy, in a retrogressive country.
All right, I would love to say thank you to Emeka Madu for being part of our segment for today. Yes.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Henry.
Thank you.
And when we return, Tinubu replaces heads of domestic and foreign intelligence agencies. Stay with us.